A teenage girl vanishes from a lifeguard post in broad daylight. No witnesses, no signs of a struggle. What happened to Molly Bish? This is Fatal Secrets of True Crime. Molly Ann Bish was born on August 2, 1983, in the small town of Warren, nestled in Worcester County. Warren is a quiet, woodsy town with a population under 5,000, a place where people know their neighbors, and crime is almost unheard of. The Bish family, deeply rooted in the community, were known for being close, kind, and resilient. Molly was the youngest of 3 children, the baby of the family. She was raised in a warm home by her parents, Magi and John Bish. Her childhood was filled with the kinds of simple joys small-town life has to offer: backyard adventures, high school dances, and lazy summer afternoons by the water. By all accounts, Molly was a vibrant and lively young woman. She had an infectious energy that drew people to her. Her friends describe her as fiercely loyal, funny, and deeply compassionate. She loved being outdoors, playing sports, and spending time with her older siblings. She was the kind of teenager who loved to make people laugh, known for doing Forrest Gump impressions at the dinner table, and randomly bursting into song in the car. But she also had a serious side. Molly cared about others. She had aspirations of going into criminal justice, inspired in part by her admiration for law enforcement, and a desire to make a difference. In the summer of 2000, Molly had just finished her junior year at Warren's Quaboag Regional High School. At 16 years old, she had recently landed her very first job as a lifeguard at Comines Pond, a local swimming spot that had long been a staple of the Warren community. For Molly, this job was more than just a paycheck. It was a chance to grow up a little, to take on responsibility, to serve her community, and to gain a bit of independence. It was also something her parents had encouraged. They trusted her. She was responsible, thoughtful, and mature for her age. Still, like any mother, Magi worried. There had been a recent attempted abduction at a nearby lake, and while the danger had passed, the memory lingered in her mind. The day before Molly disappeared, June 26, 2000, Magi drove her daughter to work just like she always did. But something about that morning felt off. As she was dropping Molly off, Magi noticed a man sitting alone in a white sedan near the entrance to the pond. The man appeared to be watching the beach, though there were no swimmers present at the time. He had dark hair, a mustache, and wore sunglasses. He didn't move, he didn't smile, he didn't wave, he simply watched. The look on his face unnerved Magi. It was, as she later said, like looking into the face of evil. The image of that man would haunt her in the years to come. The next day, June 27, 2000, began as another ordinary summer morning. Molly got ready for work, and Magi once again drove her to Comines Pond. This time, the white sedan was not there. The beach looked peaceful. Magi said goodbye to her daughter, watched her disappear down the path toward the lifeguard station, and then drove off. That was the last time anyone saw Molly Bish alive. By mid-afternoon, something seemed wrong. A local swim instructor arrived and found the lifeguard chair empty. Molly's backpack, her flip-flops, and her lunch were all there. Her water bottle and first aid kit were sitting exactly where they should have been. There were no signs of a struggle, no blood, no footprints running from the scene, just the eerie stillness of her absence. The beach remained empty. Molly, it seemed, had simply vanished. Initially, police treated the case as a possible runaway situation. Perhaps she had gotten bored or distracted, they reasoned. Maybe she had gone off with a friend. After all, there were no clear signs of foul play. But the Bish family immediately knew something was wrong. Molly wasn't the kind of girl to abandon her responsibilities. She took her job seriously. She wouldn't just disappear. Magi and John sounded the alarm, and soon, the entire town of Warren began to mobilize. What started as a small search effort quickly turned into the largest missing person investigation in Massachusetts history. Hundreds of volunteers joined law enforcement, firefighters, and members of the National Guard in the search for Molly. Helicopters flew overhead. Search dogs combed the woods. Divers scoured the depths of Comines Pond. The community poured its heart into the effort. People came from neighboring towns to lend a hand. Everyone wanted to help. The Bish family did more than wait. They became active participants in the search. Magi spoke with news outlets, appeared on national television, and refused to let the public forget her daughter's name. Flyers were printed by the thousands. Billboards were erected across the state. A website was launched. At one point, over 300 different towns across Massachusetts had received missing person packets from the Bish family. But despite all these efforts, no new leads emerged. Molly had vanished without a trace. In the months and years that followed, the Bish family would learn to live with uncertainty. They marked birthdays and holidays with heavy hearts. Every milestone passed without answers. Magi often said that she woke up every morning wondering, is today the day we find her? She never stopped hoping. She never stopped fighting. Then, in late 2002, 2.5 years after Molly went missing, a hunter reported seeing a piece of clothing in the woods of Palmer, Massachusetts, just a few miles from Warren. At the time, the tip didn't seem significant, but in May 2003, the area was searched more thoroughly. On June 9, 2003, nearly 3 full years after Molly vanished, human remains were discovered in the wooded area off Whiskey Hill. Within days, dental records confirmed the worst. The remains belonged to Molly Bish. The grief that washed over the Bish family was crushing. For 3 years, they had held on to hope. Now, there was finality. Molly was gone. She had been murdered. But even in this terrible discovery, there was no closure. Her remains were so badly decomposed that investigators could not determine a cause of death. There were no bones broken in a way that clearly indicated trauma. No definitive injuries that pointed to how she had been killed. But investigators were certain this was not an accident. Molly had been the victim of a violent crime. In the years that followed, police investigated multiple persons of interest. One of the first was Rodney Stanger, a man who had lived near Warren before moving to Florida. He resembled a sketch of the man seen near Commons Pond. He had access to a white car, and he had a criminal record. But despite the circumstantial evidence, no physical evidence tied him to the scene. No charges were filed. Another possible suspect was Gerald Battistoni, a known sex offender with a history of violence. He had been working as a confidential informant in the area around the time Molly disappeared. He also bore a resemblance to the composite sketch. In 2011, after being named a person of interest, Battistoni attempted suicide in prison. He later died in 2014. His DNA, however, did not match any evidence in the case. In 2021, a new name emerged. Francis Frank Sumner Sr. He was a convicted rapist with a disturbing history and connections to Central Mass. He had been in and out of prison since the 1980s. And crucially, he owned a car matching the one Magi described in her initial statement. Though he had died in 2016, police named him a person of interest. They hoped that advances in forensic genealogy could yield results, perhaps by comparing his relatives' DNA. But again, there was not enough physical evidence recovered from Molly's remains to make a definitive match. More than 2 decades have passed since Molly Bish was taken from her family. The case remains unsolved. Yet her legacy continues to shape the way we respond to missing children. The Bish family helped expand the Amber Alert system in Massachusetts. They founded the Molly Bish Center for Child Safety and Education, which has distributed hundreds of thousands of child ID kits across New England. Molly's story helped improve training for lifeguards, strengthen child safety protocols, and raise awareness about the importance of early intervention in missing persons cases. Though Magi Bish passed away in 2023, her daughter Heather carries the torch today. Heather has become a tireless advocate for victims and their families. She continues to push for the use of familial DNA in unsolved cases, believing that one day, science will give her family the answers they've waited so long for. Because someone knows what happened to Molly. Someone has lived with this secret, and the Bish family still believes that someday, justice will come. Molly's story is not just one of loss. It is a story of strength, of a family's determination, of a community's love, and of the ongoing fight to uncover the truth. The investigation remains active. The reward for information stands at $100,000, and the search for Molly's killer continues. 25 years later, it's been over 2 decades since Molly Bish was taken from her family, and still, no one has been held accountable. Her story is a chilling reminder of how quickly life can change, and how justice delayed can be justice denied. If you found this story as disturbing and compelling as we did, please like, comment, and subscribe for more true crime investigations like this one. This has been Fatal Secrets of True Crime, where every secret has a story.